Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome back to another For Honor Executions Graded video. Guys, I've been enjoying doing this series, and I really appreciate y'all's support as I continue to go through this. For those of you who are new to this series, I'll break it down real quick. It's very simple. I go through all of the unique executions to each hero, and I give them a grade. If you want to know how I grade and the basic rubric I use, because I did make a rubric. I'm a teacher, guys. I make a rubric. Take a look in the upper right-hand corner of the screen or in the description below, and you'll get a link to a video that I made called That's an Execution, in which I explain my full grading process and how I go through it. But the Cliff Notes version is this. I grade for lethality, how deadly is it? Realism, how realistic is it? Like, can it actually be done? Efficiency, how practical is it in warfare? And finally, for cool factor, which is just how cool or how unique I think the execution is. I grade them all on a level of 4, and then after that I come up with an average, which gets us a grade for that execution. And once I go through all the hero's executions, I then average them all up to get a final grade for that hero's executions. We've gone through all the vanguards already, so if you want to check those out, you can check out the playlist for all the executions graded. And I've already started on the assassins, which we started with Orochi, but today we are going into the Vikings. We're going to be taking a look at Berserker. Everybody say hi to Reyna. This is Reyna, our Berserker for the day. We're going to go through all of her executions, and we're going to give them all a grade. I hope you guys are excited. I know I am. Let's jump right into the good stuff. We're starting things off with Punch Drunk. All right, not bad. So for lethality, I gave this a 3, and the only reason I gave it a 3 is because there's a way that you could survive this. Here's the thing. She is using the axe heads to pound into the enemy, but when she goes into the head, which would be the death blow here, if all it does is go into the eye sockets, it may not hit the brain or cause enough brain damage to kill, because some people can survive minimal injury to the brain. They may come out a little brain dead or a little different. It may affect their personality or memory or things like that, but they may survive it. It's likely that they will die, but I can't say for certain, so I gave this a 3 out of 4 for lethality. For realism, though, this is a 4 out of 4. This is very realistic as far as executions go. The way she uses the axe is actually quite commendable, using it as a punching weapon. That's kind of cool, and it could totally be done, so I gave that a 4 out of 4 for realism. For efficiency, I also gave it a 4 out of 4. This is quick, this is useful, this is easy. It's an in-tight fight, and if you're in the middle of the battlefield, you want to get the opponent down as fast as possible. This is a very methodical way of getting them down, so I gave this a 4 out of 4 for efficiency. And for cool factor, I gave it a 3. While it is really cool, and I like the way that she uses the punching technique with the axes, I have to say, though, I think my one problem with it is, since these are axes, I would feel like you'd want to chop, or at least maybe set up with the punching, and then as he goes to his knees or something, then slam it into his head or something like that. But otherwise, I think it's really good. So that's a 14 out of 16, which is an 88%. Next up is Almost Dropped It. Alright, so Almost Dropped It. I gave that a 4 out of 4 for lethality. This will definitely kill. Taking off the arm alone might, prolong life. It's like, oh, you lost your arm. And some people can live without an arm. Some people do lose their arms and still manage to survive if they get treatment quick enough. That's not the reason. The reason is after losing the arm, which is going to cause tremendous amount of blood loss, she then follows up by slamming the axe into the neck, down into the collarbone, and likely through several blood vessels. Yeah, that will kill. That right there is going to be the killer. So that's a 4 out of 4 for lethality. For realism, though, I gave it a 2, because even though she's using both hands to chop off the arm, I don't see that as happening that easily. Again, when you're striking an arm with a blade or an axe or something like that, you got to realize that the arm is going to move too. The arm is not a stiff pole that is just going to be hit and then break from the strike. It's going to move with it. It's going to follow that energy. And so, especially since we're dealing with an axe, and while axes can be sharp, they might not be as fast or direct as a blade would be. And so I think it's even less likely that you get such an easy arm removal while the arm's still loose enough that it can be allowed to move with the axe. So, yeah, that's a 2. For efficiency, I gave it a 1. And the reason I gave it a 1 is because it takes way too damn long. We have to take the time to throw the axe, conk him in the head, then take the time to take off the arm, put it in the collarbone. That's still not enough. So we need to pick up the axe we just threw and finish it off. It takes way too long, and in a battlefield scenario, every second counts. So we had to take off points for that. So that's a 1 for efficiency. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 3 again. I do like this one. I also think it's kind of comical. The idea that, I'm going to throw my axe at you, bonk. It didn't quite work. I like that. I think that's very funny. I think that's a cool way to get the execution in. I just think it could have been done a little better, a little faster, and it would have been just fine. But that's just my position on that. So that is a 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Next up is Dismemberment. Okay, so Dismemberment. I gave that a 4 out of 4 for lethality. This is definitely lethal. You're taking off the arm again and then following up by cutting the throat with the axe. If the arm alone doesn't cause massive bleed out, the cutting of the throat will. This is a death blow, no question. But for realism, I gave it a 1. The way she takes off the arm, I just don't see happening. The only way that works is if the inside of the hatchets is bladed and sharp, and they're clearly not. There's no cutting potential. What would happen here is you might break the elbow. You might break the arm. You might pop it out of socket. You would break that arm. It would not pop off like that. That just doesn't happen. For efficiency, I gave it a 2, though. For efficiency, this is very slow and unnecessary. You didn't need to grab them and then taunt them like that. What she's doing is "Had morto day," which basically means now you die, And it's like, fine, cool, but you're in a battlefield, move on. There's no time for this taunting business. Take off his neck and move on, that's what I would do. I wouldn't take this time to just say, now you're dead, that kind of thing. I don't like that. For cool factor, though, I did give it a 3. This is the first execution that we've seen so far where there is, like a unique way of taking off the arm where it's using your foot or something instead of the weapon itself. But like I said, it's not realistic, and so I gave it a 3. It just didn't impress me as much, although I gotta admit, there is something kind of badass about the taunting here. Even though I don't think it's efficient, I do think that it is pretty cool. Alright, so that gives us a 10 out of 16 again, which is another 63%. Next up is Work the Leg. For lethality here, I gave it a 2 out of 4. You could die from that, but it might not be instant. The axe bearing itself into the stomach, you're going to get some serious bleed out. You're going to get maybe an infection, but that's not going to be an immediate kill. I get this all the time. People always say, well, Raven, if you cut open someone in the medieval age, there was no antiseptic or stuff, so even a paper cut could be lethal. To that, I respond with this. Every time you get a paper cut, do you put antiseptic on it? If not, why haven't you died from infection yet? Yeah, that's my response to that. Like, here's the thing. Not every cut is going to get infected. Now, a strike to the stomach, that may cause sepsis, that may cause internal bleeding, and you have the guts pouring out its contents into your body. That's going to cause poisoning, that's going to cause death, but it's not going to be instant death. And looking at this, I don't think this is an instant kill if it is a kill, so I gave it a 2 out of 4. For realism, though, I gave it a 4. This is very realistic. This works. The sweeping of the leg, the striking of the stomach, that works. This is good. I'm fine with all that. For efficiency, I also gave it a 4. It's quick. It's brutal. It's good. It's a good way to get the guy down and then move on. You've knocked him off his feet. There's no way he's going to crawl away from that, so I like that. And then for the cool factor, I gave it a 2. We're going to see a lot better executions on this, and while this is a effective way of taking him down, it's also pretty bare bones basic, which, I don't know. For cool factor, I always try to look for something that really fits the character's personality, and it's very unique to them. And this one, I could almost see Shaman doing something like this, But either way, really cool, at least in terms of how it is done, in terms of reality and realism. This is a very realistic looking execution. It looks like something I actually see on a battlefield. So, yep, I like that. So that is a 12 out of 16, which is a 75%. Next up, Spark It Off. All right, so that's a 4 out of 4 for lethality. Not only because of the bomb, when she throws the axe, it buries itself in the back, hitting the spine. That's going to cause paralysis, most likely, if it doesn't kill. And then the explosion finishes him off, ripping apart his back and probably a ton of muscles. So yeah, he's done. Realism, though. This is a 1. This is a 1 for realism. First of all, how did you get the bomb to stick to the axe during the throw? Second of all, how did the axe fly right back in your hand after you threw it? There's way too many variables for this to be believable. This is definitely a 1 for realism. On efficiency, I gave it a 1 as well. When she throws the axe, she runs the risk of losing her weapon. How does she know that explosion won't destroy her weapon? That means she's down a weapon, and that's not a good thing to just have one hatchet running around on the battlefield. Plus, she puts away her other hatchet and doesn't pull it out until after she gets her first one back. So it's like you disarmed yourself with the first axe, then threw away your second axe. Why? So that's a 1 for efficiency. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 4. It is too funny. It is a very funny execution. It's very creative. I still don't think it makes a lick of sense, but sometimes when you're looking at something in terms of what's cool and unique, I think it's hilarious. So that's a 4 for cool factor, which gives this, unfortunately, a 10 out of 16 again, which is a 63%.
Kaboom. Yes, Rico. Kaboom.
All right, moving on. Next up is Head Cracker. For lethality here, this was incredibly hard to call. I had to change the perspective on the fight in order to get a better idea of what's happening here. So when I changed the perspective, look very carefully about where the axe initially land. They have buried themselves in the chest. I know it's really hard to see because of the tangle of arms and armor there, but she initially buries the axes into the chest. If those go deep enough, those will kill. So I gave that a 3 out of 4. It's hard to tell how deep they go. It's very hard to tell because she pulled the axes out incredibly easily, which surprised me. How did she pull them out that easily, that effectively? Regardless of that, though, if they did go deep enough, that's a kill. So I give it a 3 out of 4 for that. For realism, though, 4 out of 4. This feels realistic. Jumping onto the enemy, striking into the chest. When the enemy tries to push her off, she knocks the arms to the side and then rolls off. You know, that was good. Let the injury speak for itself. I like that. Efficiency. I gave it a 3 out of 4 for efficiency, and I'll tell you why. It is a little slower than I'd like it to be for full efficiency, but I gave it more points because of the headbutt. Now, I think the headbutt is a little silly, but let me explain my thoughts. Notice how after she hits the chest, he still manages to fight back, right? That implies that these blows are not instantly lethal. But if she knocks out her opponent, what's he going to do? How is he going to fight back? How is he going to struggle? How is he going to resist here? So she's making sure she gets him unconscious so that he can't find help, and it's more likely he will just die from blood loss. So I like that. It was a good way to make sure that he stays down. It's still a little slow for what I'd like, so I gave it a 3. But still, that's not bad. I used to not like the headbutt, but now I kind of see the usefulness of it. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 3. I know I just finished talking about that, but even though I do see the usefulness of the headbutt, I still think it looks kind of silly. I just still think it's kind of silly. And then after she does the headbutt, it's a wham and then rolls off, and that looks a little funny to me. So I give it a 3 for cool factor, and that gives us a 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. Next up is Vehement Axe Stomp. Alright, for lethality here, I gave it a 4. This is definitely going to kill. Several strikes, all in the upper part of the body, near the head, and then finishing off with a strike to the throat or side of the face. That's going to kill. There's no question there to me. For realism, this is, again, a 4 out of 4. I think that this was very realistically done. All of the strikes were done well. And, I mean, hey, look, throwing hatchets is an actual sport, so I don't mind her throwing the hatchets here and landing both of them. Shows skill, shows training with the hatchets. That's good. I like the way she did that. But for efficiency, I gave it a 1. Why? Take a guess. She disarmed herself twice. She threw both of her axes away, didn't bother to hold on to one. And while it did secure the pin on the shoulders, you're now disarmed. If someone comes after you while you're disarmed, how are you going to defend yourself? That's not a good plan. But then, cool factor, I gave it a 4. I actually really like this execution. I really like it. Even though I said it was inefficient, I agree with that. I like it because everything is a setup. It is a perfect setup. First, strike to the head to disorient. Strike to the neck to get them on the ground. 2 axes into the shoulders to pin him. Yanks them out and then strikes the face while standing on him so he cannot get up. Every move is setting up to the next one. There's no moment where Berserker goes, oh man, what do I do now? How do I fix this problem? No, I like this because Berserker feels very much in control, which is a good thing to be. So I gave this a 13 out of 16, which was another 81%. The efficiency just killed it here. And you'll find that, I think, will be a theme with Berserker. Next up is watch this. Okay, so for lethality here, that's a 4 out of 4. The strike to the throat is very effective. And you know what? Props, guys. She didn't take off the head. Thank you for not taking off the head. So she strikes the throat, definite, almost immediate bleed out. And what I like is as the warden looks up to see what she threw, that's exposing all of the throat, Adam's apple, everything to the Berserker. That's going to be an almost instant kill. Then for realism, I give that a 4 out of 4. It feels realistic. Feel like that could actually happen. No problem there. Efficiency, 4 out of 4. Even though she threw her axe into the air, she still kept one axe available, which means that she didn't fully disarm herself. And she did get the strike very quickly and then regained her axe very fast after that. I think it's a little unbelievable maybe that she caught it that easily, but you know what? I've seen worse. And then finally for cool factor, I gave it a 3 just because it is essentially at the end of the day just cutting the throat while playing, look at me, you know, one of those things. It's not a big deal, but it did take 1 point off for that. So that gives it a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%. I do like this one. Next up is Move It Along. Sounds like a song, doesn't it? By the All-American Rejects? Maybe I'm crazy. Anyway, so, Move It Along. I gave it a 4 out of 4 for lethality. 4 out of 4 for lethality. This is definitely lethal. Multiple strikes to various parts of the body, all causing significant bleed out. Very difficult to treat all of these, and then finishing off with another strike to the chest, which buried itself deep enough that she could throw him with it. Very cool. That's going to kill. Realistically, I also think this is a 4 out of 4. Notice that she never buries the axe so deep that it hooks. She's basically using each part of the axe, some parts to disorient and other parts to cut. Like some of these strikes, I don't think are cutting. Like the last strike she does to the head, I don't think she used the blade there. I think she used that to disorient him, which I can get behind. I like that. I like the effectiveness of using all the axes. For efficiency, I gave it a 4 out of 4. This is fast. She uses all parts of the axes. And for cool factor, I know I'm moving through these fast, but for cool factor, I gave it a 4 out of 4 too. And I'll tell you why. Because here's the thing. I don't like dual wielding necessarily because I think that has a lot of flaws to it. But here I love how fluid the Berserker moves, how carefully she moves. The swinging of each part, using her body to move with the axes, so it's getting as much force as she can from either side, but not sacrificing either side either. Everything feels good. I definitely like this one. It feels like what I'd expect from Berserker. This is what I would want from a dual-wielding warrior. Very cool. It almost feels like maybe what an orc would do in Lord of the Rings, you know? This feels very cool. So, as you probably guessed, that is a 16 out of 16, giving us Berserker's first perfect scored execution. This is a very good one. Next up is Final Dance. Alright, for Final Dance, it gets a 4 out of 4 for lethality. Multiple strikes across the shoulders, neck, head, and then finally one on the back, which severs the spine. All of those combined will make it very difficult to treat that. That is definitely lethal. That's going to kill. For realism, 4 out of 4 again. As long as none of the axe blows go too deep into the body, which I don't think they are, she can continue moving in that circular way and spinning the enemy. I think, here's the thing, I would be upset if the spinning were done by a sword, because I feel like a sword being a lighter and less weighted weapon on the end would have a harder time spinning the body, but these are axes. Axes are heavier. Axes are weighted on one end, so I think it makes a lot more sense that you could use that weight to spin the body. So I definitely think that's more realistic. For efficiency, I give it a 4 out of 4 again, because this is fast, this is effective, and she doesn't keep the axe locked in his back for long. She quickly gets that out. She quickly says, nope, I'm pulling you out immediately, I'm moving on. So she doesn't let the fact that the axe gets stuck hinder her. For cool factor, though, I did give it a 3 out of 4. And that's only because I feel like it's just copying the zone attack. which I guess is creative in its own way, but I wanted to see a little bit more than that. Plus, it is kind of lame that the axe gets stuck like that. It would have been cool if she just finished off with that, yanked the axe out, and then buried it in his head or something. That's what I was kind of hoping to see. I really always expected Berserker to have an execution where they just bury the axe in the crown of the head. That's kind of something I wanted to see from Berserker, and I'm a little disappointed we didn't see it here. So for Final Dance, it gets a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%. Next up is Cannonball Dropkick. I do not like this one. All right, for lethality, that is a 1 out of 4. You are not even using the axes. You're using your feet and your body weight to get the kill. And here's the thing. I'm not going to say it's impossible to get a kill like this. Like, what can happen is when you do that kick, you could break the ribs, which could cause them to puncture a lung or a heart. But the key word there is could. That is a big could. You don't know that will happen. They could get right back up and come right back at you. I do not see this as lethal, and I think it's even more insulting because Berserker, you have axes. When you're doing that running leap at him, why don't you hit him with the axes? Instead, you decide to kick him? That's a dumb idea. So that's a 1 for lethality. For realism, it's a 3. I mean, as much as I don't like it, you could do it. I think the only unrealistic thing about this is the fact that she was able to get such a powerful kick while in midair. That I don't buy. And then for efficiency, it's a 3 again. I think I give it a 3 because if it's so unlethal, I don't even think it's efficient because you're not getting the kill you require. You're basically kicking this guy to the ground and picking yourself back up. Plus, you landed on your back. You basically expose yourself to an enemy soldier who's nearby just to get that kick. No, I don't like that. I don't like that you had to throw yourself on the ground to get that kill, even if it was a kill. And then finally, for cool factor, it's a 1. I don't like this. You are an axe-wielding warrior. You have an axe in each hand, and what do you decide to do? Use my feet. Sorry, no, unless you're fighting a gladiator who gets off on that, no, that's not a good idea. So this one got an 8 out of 16, which is a 50%. Not a good one. Next up is Timber. All right, for lethality here, we gave it a 3 out of 4. This could definitely kill. I think the axes are buried deep enough to do a lot of internal damage. It just might not kill immediately because nothing vital has been destroyed. The axes would need to be a bit deeper for that to happen. But it very well could kill, so I gave it a 3 out of 4 for that. For realism, I gave it a 3. You could do this. You could definitely do this. I think it would make a little bit more sense if her leg was back and she used that to pivot a little bit. I also don't think it's that realistic that the axes stay buried that long, since they're not hooked on anything. But then you might think, oh, well, you know, they're just stuck in his flesh. Okay, then how did they come out so easily after she threw them? It's like they just decided to come out on their own when they were ready. It's a little weird. And then for efficiency, you know, I gave it a 3, but I think my biggest problem with it is keeping the axes buried. I wouldn't keep them buried. Your goal is to try to get them out as soon as you can. I think that there were better ways to do this. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 2. It's just a flip. And flips are fine, but when you're aiming for killing, I look for something a little bit better than just flipping the guy. Especially when you're using axes. Why would you want to flip someone when you have an axe? I don't know. Anyway, so that gives Timber an 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. Groovy. Next up, Severe Amputation. The name here is a little funny. It should be Severe Decapitation because nothing here was amputated, unless you count the head, but then we call that a decapitation. Alright, so, lethality. I gave this a 4. Obviously, the head came off. Actually, I'm surprised. I think this is our first decapitation out of all of Berserker's executions, so that's interesting. So that's a 4 for lethality. For realism, I gave it a 1, and I'll tell you why. Look very carefully when she decapitates. She buries the axe part of the way into the neck, and then doesn't follow through. She just kind of pulls it out, and then the head just pops off, like it's coiled up on a spring. Like, what? That's not how decapitations work. That's not how that works at all. Everything else is fine. The setup with the leg coming down and then striking in the neck. If she just followed through, like, don't pause. Why'd she pause? Why'd she Notice very carefully. She swings, pause, then pulls out. No, follow all the way through. Then I might have bought it a little bit more. I mean, it still would have been a little hard to do, but I would have bought it. But no, just kind of pause, and then it just comes off. I don't like that. For efficiency, though, it's 4. I like the way that she sets him up. She knocks out the leg, sets up for the strike to the head, and then moves on with her life. So that's a 4. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 2. Yeah, for cool factor, I gave it a 2. I don't like it. I don't like it that much, mostly because that decapitation feels so weak. You know, if she just, I like the build up, like the wind up into that strike, and then stop, pop. I don't like that. If she'd followed through, I would have given it a better score. But as it stands, that's an 11 out of 16 again, which is a 69%. Very unfortunate. Next up is Valkenheim. It's a very fast execution. For lethality, it's a 4 out of 4. We got a decapitation again. For realism, that's a 2. Again, this comes down to the reality that you are using your foot and the pressure of it to take off a head. The only way this works is if the inside of the axes are bladed. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to break the neck, or you're going to break a rib, or the body is just going to sink beneath the axes and keep going forward. Like, you're not going to take off a head like this. That's just not going to happen. But again, the only way that works is if the inside of the axe blades are bladed. For efficiency, I gave it a 4. This is fast. This is very fast, and you move on very quickly. So I'll give it that much. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 3. If for no other reason than this is an obvious reference to the film 300, where King Leonidas kicks a dude into a pit, saying, "This is Sparta."
This is Sparta!
So I got to give it some points for that. Which gives this one, this is Valkenheim, 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. Next up is Blood Rage. Alright, we got another decapitation. That's a 4 out of 4 for lethality. For realism, I gave it a 2. Okay. So dual wielding. Here's the reason I don't like dual wielding. I prefer using two-handed weapons or one hand with a shield. And the reason why is because when you swing one-handed with an axe and then another hand with an axe, half of your power is gone. You've sacrificed any defensive capability for full offense, but each hand only has so much power to it. And because of that, that means that this taking off of the head with just a cross strike like this isn't going to be easy to do, especially without the proper windup, which you're just not going to get. For example, look at the axe that was under. So her left hand. Look at her left-handed axe. What does her left-handed axe do here? Look again. Look very carefully. She did not use it to cut. She used her right hand to cut. Her right hand did the cutting, so you can't even say, oh, well, she just used both axes to cut at the same time. No, she used one axe, and I don't think it's going to have enough power to take the head off. At least not in the way it did. So I gave that a 2 out of 4 for realism. For efficiency, I gave it a 3. It's quick enough. It's good at that. It's got enough efficiency to give it a 3. But for cool factor, I gave it a 2. And I'll tell you why. I think the name is misleading. The name is Blood Rage. So I was expecting some anger, some rage, some fury. And here it's just kick in the crotch and then take off the head. Like, I don't know. That's not Blood Rage. That's just comical. But regardless, that gives it an 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. Next up is Double Your Effort. Alright, we got another decapitation. That is a 4 out of 4 for lethality. For realism, I gave it a 3, because this is a little bit more believable. You're putting both hands into the strike, you're using both axe heads, which means you're going to get double the strike, you're going to get, I mean, if both are sharp enough, this is fine. This will work just fine. For efficiency, I give it a 4. This is fast. This is very quick. Feels like a very fast, just here's your baseball bat swing, and then we're done. We move on. For cool factor, I gave it a 2. I mean, at the end of the day, it's essentially just, I'm going to put both axes together and swing them at your neck. While that's efficient and lethal, it's not that cool. I'm just like, okay, that's kind of neat, I guess. Like, it's one of those things. Which gives us a 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. And last but not least is Split Knot. Alright, so that is a lethality of 4 out of 4 because, again, we've got a decapitation. Lots of decapitations in this final stretch, so definite guaranteed lethality. For realism, though, I gave it a 2, and it's for the same reason as I did not too long ago. Look at what she does. Buries the axe part of the way into the neck and then kicks the head off. I'm sorry, that isn't so easy to do. The only way this works, I'll give this caveat, the only way that works is if you kept the axe in the neck and then pulled back on the axe to draw the head to you when you kicked, which may have been enough to kick off the head, but look at what happens. Does she do that? No, she buries the axe in, then yanks it out right before the kick. See, buries, pulls out right before the kick. So there was nothing there to help the kick happen. There was nothing there to help with the decapitation. So I think this decapitation was just too easily done. Now, I've had a lot of people tell me, Raven, you judge decapitations too harshly. You know that with a sharp enough blade and a skilled enough warrior, decapitations are very easy to do. And to that I say, no, they're not. They are not. Sharpness is not all that matters. Skill is not all that matters. There's also weight, there's body position, there's angle of strike, there's weight of the weapon. You guys need to forget that the neck is made up of several muscles, tissues, and a vertebra. It takes some energy to take off a head, and I'm going to grade that harshly. So keep that in mind. Efficiency, I gave it a 2. The build up to this was kind of interesting. Berserker basically pulls out the leg to make them do a split, and I think that takes too long. You shouldn't have had to bother with that. Do the split if you want to, and then quickly strike, but then Berserker takes the time to and then strike, kick. A little bit too much time was taken there, so I gave it a 2 for efficiency. For cool factor, I gave it a 3. As much as this execution does kind of annoy me, I did kind of like the fact that she was creative enough to do a split. That kind of fits Berserker's personality a little bit. Kind of cocky, kind of a hard ass. I like that. I can get behind that. I think the problem was what makes it uncool for me is how unsatisfying the decapitation was. I really wanted her to build up into this. What if when she did the split, she just threw one axe into the leg or something, and then just put both hands on that last axe and just walloped him, just threw her axe through his neck. That would have been fine with me. I would have actually given this a much better score. But regardless, this score is an 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. Very unfortunate. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up all of Berserker's unique executions after adding all of the scores together and then dividing by 17. Yes, that was 17 executions. We get an average score of 76%. That's right. Berserker gets a 76%. I'll be honest, the score kind of surprised me because as I looked over everything, Berserker had some things working very well for her in this. Lethality was good in almost everything. I had a lot of 4s in lethality, which I was very impressed to see. And even in cool factor, we had a lot of very cool executions. What I think killed it in a lot of this was the level of efficiency versus realism. It felt like in a few cases, when it was high efficiency, it was low realism, and when it was high realism, it was low efficiency. There were a couple of cases like that. Not many, but a few, such as the Amputation execution, and this is Valkenheim execution. So some of those kind of threw that off. I think that the problem was when it had a high score in one area, it had a much lower score in another area. And that's something that's going to happen with someone like Berserker. Berserker's this character who has a lot of bombastic, wild move sets. And you're using axes. And here's the thing. Axes are a powerful weapon to use on the battlefield. There's a reason the Vikings use them. There's a reason they're so powerful. They're a heavy weapon. They're a deadly weapon. But they're also a very cumbersome weapon that you can have some trouble controlling them, especially one-handed. Think about that for a second. If you have a sword, which is moderately well balanced, you can have some control of that one-handed. With an axe, it's not balanced. Axes aren't designed to be balanced. One side is going to be heavier than the other, so it becomes very easy to lose control of them, and that puts Berserker at a bit of a disadvantage. So there's going to be some moments where Berserker is not going to have the control she needs. Only one really impressed me, and that was Move It Along, where she had full control and took advantage of the axes in a very unique and creative way. Other times, I felt like it just hurt Berserker because Berserker was being a little inefficient and some of the moves were a little unrealistic. But overall, I did enjoy looking over this one. What do you guys think? Did y'all enjoy Berserker's executions? Which ones were your favorite and why? And do you think that this grading went well? If you like this video, feel free to check out the other ones I've done. I've done all the Vanguards and I'm doing doing the assassins now. I've hit Orochi, and Berserker's just the newest one on that list. If you want to see more videos like this, check out that playlist to see them all. If you still need a reminder on how I grade things, you can check out the video That's an Execution, which is in the description below. And if you guys want to see more of my channel, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like on the video, and comment down below. I always read the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.